Next, we have Supta Padangustasana, which is very similar to Hasta Padangustasana, that standing posture, balancing posture. We bring the leg out to the side and we fold forward. It's the same thing as that, the same order of movements, except we're lying flat on our backs, which is nice because now we have an opportunity to not focus so much on the balancing aspect of Hasta Padangustasana and more on like the legs and how the legs are moving in the hips and how we're moving the legs through space and how we're using the core to lift the chin. So we can take a slightly different perspective with a very similar form because we're just oriented in a different position. We're lying on our backs. So after you take a vinyasa, inhale, you jump through to seated. And then exhale, you're going to lie down on your back. So we're going to start with lifting the right leg. And we'll have the left arm on the thigh. And already when you lie down, you really want to make this super engaged and active. So the legs are engaged. You're reaching out through the base of the big toes. So you have this subtle internal rotation through the legs. It feels like you're narrowing the pelvis, narrowing the front of the pelvis. And then you're going to inhale, pick up the right leg, catch the right big toe. And already from here, when I catch the big toe, I kind of like to have a moment where I feel that leg dropping into the hip socket. And then you counteract that downward moving with the base of the big toe reaching out. So you're really stabilized through those opposing movements. And then the first movement after this is we inhale, bring the chin towards the shin. So we're using the core strength to get this. And you want to think about the chin reaching towards the shin, but also the shin reaching towards the chin. It gets confusing because they kind of sound the same. So they're both meeting each other. And so you're pulling the leg towards you and you're lifting the chin up from here. And you want to make sure that the elbow kind of drops down, just because that's what allows me to keep the shoulder from kind of creeping up towards the ear. If pointing the elbow out to the side helps you to do that, then go ahead, by all means do that as well. And then when you're here, you want to keep thinking about this internal rotation of the straight leg on the floor, so that you don't let this happen where like you let the leg splay out to the side. Keep drawing it in. And then you keep that internal rotation with the leg that's lifted by reaching to the base of the big toe. So again, you have this like inward spiral that we sort of found with Paschimottanasana and some other of those like symmetrical forward folds. After you're here for 5 breaths, you're reaching through this left arm. Inhale, you lower down, and then exhale, you're going to bring the leg out to the side just like in Utthita Hasta. I like to think about leading with the toes and letting the heel come forward, because that action is what brings the leg into external rotation. So you're moving from this, gentle internal rotation to the leg, and then a very obvious external rotation. So the thigh is rolling this way. So the heel is pointing forward towards the center. And you keep reaching through the base of the big toe. So I really feel like I'm pulling back through the right big toe and then counteracting that by reaching through the base of the big toe. So there's this like resistance there. And that resistance I really like that resistance of the action counteraction, because it gives me a sense of integration and stability from the inside. So we're here, same as Utthita we look over to the opposite shoulder. And, I like to, bring this leg just as far as it can go without lifting this hip up. There's nothing wrong with lifting the hip up. Some people say that you have to keep it down, and I used to be one of those people. But now I'm more about just like, if the hip wants to lift up, then that's okay. I think generally it's good to just allow the pelvis to move as it wants to, instead of like locking the pelvis in a certain place. We all have such different structures, so allowing the pelvis to move, I think, is always a good idea. But so if if it means that the leg doesn't go all the way to the floor, if you want to keep this hip on the floor, then it doesn't need to go all the way to the floor. It can, which is also okay. I could try to bring the leg to the floor and bring the left hip down, which, right now I'm not super warm, so I'm like really feeling it on my inner thigh. So this is a really deep stretch for the inner thigh and for like deep in the hip. So, you decide if you want to bring the leg down, if you want to bring the hip down, if you want to bring both down, It's slightly different experiences. And then if you want to have another type of experience here, you can think about drawing the heel towards the floor. And that's really cool because that brings in a counteraction in the hip. So you're counteracting the external rotation in the hip by reaching the heel down towards the floor, and it just kind of presents a new stretch happening on the inner thigh and around the hip. So we're here for 5 breaths, and then inhale, we come back to the center. Exhale for just one more breath, just like Utthita Hasta. Inhale, lower the leg, and then exhale, we lower it down. And then we do the other side. Inhale. If you need to bend the knee, you can. One option. Another option, you can use a strap around the foot and hold onto the strap, or you can hold onto anywhere along the leg, if holding onto the big toe with the leg straight isn't yet happening for you. So inhale, just to go through it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, come down. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, and then exhale, you release the leg. To come out of this, we Chakrasana, which I'll break down Chakrasana in another video. You do a backward roll into a vinyasa, and you start the other posture. So this is a great posture to really work on that internal engagement through the legs, through that internal spiral of the legs, and then also incorporating flexibility, because you need those long hamstrings and the long inner thighs to sort of settle into this. But it's strong. Even though you're not standing and focusing on balancing, there's still a lot of internal strength and integration that's happening through the core, through the hips, through the legs. So really seeing if you can find that balance between where to engage, what internal patterns to activate to feel that internal engagement and integration, but also have that release through the hamstrings and the inner thighs, which is something that you've been working on throughout the primary series up until now. Opening the hamstrings, opening the inner thighs, not so much, but a little bit. We could definitely use a little bit more of that. So taking that into consideration when you bring the leg out to the side, really, maybe spend a couple breaths there, because you're really getting a nice opportunity to open the inner thighs here, which we don't get a lot of that, at least not as much as we get the opportunity to open our hamstrings and lengthen our hamstrings in primary series. So yeah, good luck, try it out, and let me know how it goes.